Welcome to War Room Impeachment. We're live from Capitol Hill. It's Monday, 12 January, the year of our Lord 2020. It's game on this week as we kick off. We're finished the preliminaries. We'll now get down to the thing itself. The trial of the century around the crime of the century is about to start. Episode 110 on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Salem Radio Network nationwide. America streaming, the top streaming platform in the United States and throughout the world. And, of course, Newsmax TV now in 70 million homes, given the great work of Chris Ruddy and the team at Newsmax with my wingman, Raheem Kassam of UKIP fame and from Brexit, the communication strategist of Brexit, and also Jason Miller, the communication strategist for the Trump come-from-behind victory in 2016, and also the transition, whose communications director. We're also honored to be joined in studio today with Darrell, Issa. Congressman Issa has always been one of the great warriors in the conservative movement. You ran oversight for years, right? It was oversight.
Back when we did oversight.
You were a hammer too.
It's been a little off under the Democrat rule. Apparently, oversight and impeachment are synonymous now. You know, it's why bother investigating when you know he's guilty before you start?
Let's get into that. We got a lot to go through, but let's just jump right into that because we're going to get into my hit on Maria yesterday, talk about the updates and how they're going. This is game week. You know, the master political strategist Nancy Pelosi, the great villain, who was at the Regency Hotel yesterday, I think with Bloomberg party. Oh yeah. The existential money threat of the 2020 campaign, Michael Bloomberg. So this week she comes back. It was supposed to be a matter of urgency. He was a clear and present danger, right? Clear and present danger that they had to it had to go so quickly. All of that. Where you sit, Congressman, what are your thoughts about this whole thing?
Well, what's amazing is they've managed to take the playbook failures of the Clinton impeachment and amplify them. And this is particularly important because Adam Schiff ran for office back in 2000 against Clinton impeachment, and yet here he is with a clear, he's guilty based on false evidence time and time again, and now he's going to lead the impeachment process in the Senate, when in fact his own credibility for why are we here is gone. He's already accused the president time and time again of things that didn't happen.
Such as?
Well, such as collusion. One of the amazing things is that in spite of the pain that the family went through, the Mueller investigation led to a vindication of the president, but that hasn't changed the fact that they were going to impeach him for collusion. They simply had to change the charges.
Let's go yesterday. I think what we tried to do yesterday on Maria Bartiromo, we talked about on the show all week, is the convergence of these. This is a foreign policy debate, right? It's the convergence of the two eyes, Iran and impeachment, which really is about the rejection of the permanent political class and the business model that runs this town. And I think that is why, we have advocated. And here's what's going to happen. We're going to talk about what's going to go on in the next, 48 hours, 72 hours. We have advocated a long trial. We have advocated, getting witnesses up there. We've advocated the details. The granularity is our friend. How do you think we drive? Nancy Pelosi is going to come back just on the logistics. She's going to come back, tomorrow, have her caucus meeting, put it up for a vote on the floor on Wednesday, right? Transmit it to the Senate. They'll have 2 or 3 days of administrative functions, right? There'll be a bunch of votes. Schumer's going to force a bunch of tough votes for these senators. For Cory Gardner in Colorado and Tillis in North Carolina and Collins in Maine, right? Force a bunch of tough votes about witnesses and evidence. Other evidence is not. And then we're going to get into it a week from Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I learned early on in campaign politics is you always got to remember your opponents have problems too. And I think this is good for us to keep in mind. If you turn on the TV today and you see the news and everyone's piling on President Trump and they're trying to take this massive win of removing this terrible terrorist like Qasem Soleimani and try to turn it into some sort of negative. Democrats are in a real bind here. Nancy Pelosi railroaded through these 2 articles of impeachment, and then she sat on it for a full month. And she's doing it pretty blatantly. It's to the point where you've lost your Allison Camaradas on CNN. Even Democrats, Dianne Feinstein, congressman from, unfortunately, California, continued to elect her over and over. Even she's turned on Speaker Pelosi and put down a lot of criticism. So Democrats are going to go and send over these articles. But then once they get there, again, to the point that the congressman just said about the Democrats amplifying all of the mistakes from the Clinton impeachment, the fact that they're going to have Adam Schiff, the pencil-necked Adam Schiff, as President Trump likes to refer to him, leading this entire effort. I don't see how, for the Democrats, I don't see how they can have Schiff lead this. I mean, he is now so polarized. He is now such a political partisan figure that every time Adam Schiff gets up there and talk, it's basically it may as well be Nancy Pelosi herself.
He's been the face of this for Democrats. I mean, Congressman, he's been the face of this for Democrats. He also knows the evidence so well, at least the evidence they have, right? How do they have anybody but Schiff, who's been the face of this? You can't have Jerry Nadler. That's a disaster, right? Cummings is...
You mean the man who on the train said he was going to impeach the president before he was even chairman?
that guy.
But
the guy Corey Lewandowski, the state trooper from New Hampshire, bench pressed on national TV, right?
But this is what I mean, that your opponents have problems too, and that they're stuck with Schiff. I mean, Adam Schiff, and they're not going to go and swap him out, but they're stuck with him. He is not an asset to Democrats anymore. Not only does he have, like you said, the mastery, he also has the fake conversation.
Do you buy that Schiff is not an asset to the Democrats?
And he's a complete liability. Here's a former U.S. attorney who ran for Congress against impeachment, and now he's got 2 charges that he's going to try to prove, what I call use of authority and objection to Congress. Because here's what really happened. The president used his unique authority, which is over foreign policy and national defense. There's no question. It's his authority, and they object to it. And when it came to objecting to demands by Congress and saying, go to the courts, something that I had to do repeatedly under President Obama, they've suddenly made it impeachable. So the 2 weakest possible charges, objecting to the use of the president's unique authorities under the Constitution and objection to his objecting to Congress's demands.
You, in fact, were the individual that found the Attorney General under President Obama in contempt, right? It was you under a holder in the gun walking.
Well,
exercise. Fast and furious.
Well, and
you became a hero at Breitbart. I mean, every day we had something up about that.
Well, and the NRA still remembers me kindly for it. But the fact is that what we had there was the Attorney General who had documents he owed us that had been properly subpoenaed, and he said, "I'll give them to you if you drop the rest of the investigation." And we looked and said, "Well, by definition, you owe them, give them to us, we'll look at them, then we'll decide if the investigation's over." So contempt was very appropriate. The president has claimed specifically some documents are covered under privilege, and he said, go get a judge and decide. There's nothing wrong with that. So on that count, the fact that he won't just turn over documents without a court order backing up when he claims privilege, it's the weakest possible hand.
And correct me if I'm wrong. It was, and I know the people on Newsmax and America's Voice in Salem will love this. If we go down memory lane, Holder was in his car en route to testify in front of you, correct? When they claimed executive privilege, they turned the car around, right? Because he's going to find him in contempt, right? He's got the bailiff down there, or the Capitol Hill police about to lock up Holder.
Well, the amazing piece of history was that after we found him in contempt and we sent the indictment, if you will, over to the court, the problem is the person who had to prosecute it was a U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. And who do you think he worked for? Eric Holder. And who do you think told him not to prosecute? Eric Holder. It's one of the challenges between the 2 branches, but it's also the reason that the courts have been willing to take these cases when there is this constitutional gridlock. But instead of going there, Nancy Pelosi has decided to do impeachment. That's what makes this case so weak. They have not exhausted their case before the court, and yet They want to impeach the president.
Is that why they slow walked this? She was looking for more evidence, and also the politics. Remember, AOC has said over this break shouldn't be in the same party in Europe. She wouldn't be in the same party as Joe Biden. She came out yesterday and says, I'm not stroking my $250,000 check to the Democrats overall. I'm also starting my own PAC. I mean, Pelosi, tomorrow's conference hearing is going to be a little tough, right? In the fact that you're going to have some of the far left fired up. I tell you, we're going to take a short commercial break and come back with Congressman Darrell, Issa, Jason Miller. Raheem, how can people go? We're on fire now, over 1 million downloads, thanks to your stewardship.
Well, the podcast, I am pleased to announce, has just hit number 10 on the iTunes news category. So people remember we were about 30 to 40 the last couple of weeks. We've been
Top
ramping
10,
things
baby.
up. We're now in the top 10. Find it at warroom.org/podcast. Search your podcast app for War Room Impeachment. And of course, all the news as it breaks over the course of today, all the show clips will be at warroom.org.
Okay, Raheem Kassam, Jason Miller, Congressman Darrell, Issa, Stephen K. Bannon. We're going to return in just a second on War Room.
War Room Impeachment. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Episode 110. It's game week here as Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats come back, and they're now going to finally transmit the matter of urgency, the clear and present danger to the United States Senate. Raheem Kassam, Jason Miller. Honored to have Congressman Darrell, Issa. And we know Congressman Issa from the years of oversight of the Obama administration that were, so interesting to go through. Let's talk about this trial. The trial of the century. President Trump, once again, being the master communication narrative, listens to the show and says, hey, I love you guys, and I love the fact it's trial of the century. It's the crime of the century. It's the crime of the century. That's what makes it the trial of the century. And the crime is not his perfect phone call. Right, the unity and substance. We got more into the substance. We found out the everybody's come together. The phone call is perfect. It's it is the crime of the century, and how we're only going to unearth is as good as Lindsey Graham is. We're not going to unearth this in the Senate Judiciary Committee hearings later. You're going to have.
That's because paint dries faster.
You haven't lost any of your edge.
You're
still just as edgy as you.
18 years of sending bills to die in the Senate and a year of waiting for the Senate to confirm me as they thought about confirming almost anyone.
The last time I left, in fact, you and I, since we're so close, I mean, you were going to be a major part of the administration. To walk people briefly through that, because you're one of the killers. Trump loves killers. Hey, you're a Mark 1 Mod 0 killer. That's why we had you in there. What happened?
Well, they sent me to a committee where hung jury Bob was the ranking member, and Senator Menendez simply blocked me endlessly under two chairmen. And when it became obvious it wasn't going to happen, I went to the president and said, what? If they confirm me now, I'm covered by the Hatch Act. I can't even campaign. Why not have me go back and campaign? And he thought it was a good idea, and so did I.
Why? Here's the reason, is that you're pretty unique in the fact that you were an incredibly successful entrepreneur. You don't come at this just as a lawyer. You come at this as an entrepreneur. You're a businessman. You understand economics. You understand finance. You understand how you got to organize and put things together. And it's always given you a different perspective. You could tell when you ran oversight, there was a different angle of attack the way you came at things.
Well, I didn't know it at the time, but my goal was to run oversight the same way as Donald Trump would. The fact is, we went after the
full gangster.
We went after the swamp, and when we retake the House in November on behalf of this president, in the second term, we have to drain the swamp by going after those entities that some of them like Lois Lerner, we went after under Obama. But the reality is, they're still
the
there.
IRS that went after all the Tea Party groups.
Exactly.
This is the point. A lot
and
of them are still there.
They're still there undermining this president. They're also undermining our republic, undermining the American people. And the only way to get to them at the EPA and at OSHA and at agency after agency is, in fact, to hold the kind of hearings that we can hold with President Trump.
This is why we're going to have the trial of the century. This is the Senate is not the jury. The American people are the jury, and the world is the audience. The kids on the streets in Tehran, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, in Beirut, the whole world is going to be the audience. This will be a global television event. You understand in running, and you did a good job in the theatrics of oversight. It made people galvanize. People watched your hearings.
We call them a live studio audience.
Exactly. So how to walk us through, in your expertise, this trial that's coming up? Should we get immediate dismissal? Should it be a short trial with Adam Schiff doing his curated version of the 7,000 pages? Or should we go for it and have a real trial?
I know the Senate would like to take 2 weeks to do nothing. But in the real world, 2 months of actually holding the Democrats accountable for their false claims against this president, for what the president and his family have had to go through in false accusations. To be honest, every member of his team has been one way or the other affected by their attempt to, not just collusion, but every possible activity. And by the way, this needs to be an investigation of the wrongdoing by the FBI. And that can be done when you start calling people in who lied, who changed documents, who did things to cause the president to be accused of essentially treason.
Who else needs to be brought in as a witness? We've seen the president put out some names, the whistleblower 2 who disappeared. Where's Hunter? Who do you think should be brought in?
The IG report.
The IG,
he wants to,
that was big.
and he wants to see Biden too. He's got a list of 5 people.
Well, there's one person I'd love to see in a positive way, and it's Michael Horowitz. Because quite frankly, the IG is one of the few honest brokers in this thing. He may reach conclusions people don't like. We don't have specific evidence, but he went through, and with his limited authority, he found so much wrongdoing. You bring him in, and he explains all the places, all the tentacles of government he wasn't allowed to go into. It makes the case for Attorney General Barr expanding with his U.S. attorney this investigation.
This is why President Trump wanted it. Remember, that came out of right field the other night. People said that, he's talked about the IG report. Also, what about Brennan? What about other these people that are part of this conspiracy?
Unfortunately, the closed door, the CIA and all these agencies always get a pass from scrutiny. In this case, when they, in cahoots basically with the FBI, and the Department of Justice are what caused these false allegations, they have to come before Congress, and they have to testify fully and completely.
Wow.
And by the way, it may hurt some of the classified history, but you remember Adam Schiff, pencil neck as the president likes to call him, he's the guy that said, I've got the evidence, I've seen it. And Devin Nunes said, no, I've seen the same evidence, it's not true. Well, now we know Devin was telling the truth, Adam Schiff was lying, and the only way to resolve that is for Adam Schiff, if he's going to be the prosecutor,
100%.
He's also going to be a fact witness.
You think you ought to be a fact witness too? Adam
Absolutely.
Schiff?
I think when you've lied to the American people, said you had something, the president has the right to say, look, whatever that information is, I waive its top secret clearance. Now tell us what it was. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's why I made the point that I think Adam Schiff is a liability for them. And that is exactly why Adam Schiff should have to come forward as a witness as well.
You know what? I'm going to interrupt you a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
War room, we interrupt each other.
One
all
of the
time.
things about lawyers that you have to understand is when they're conflicted, they're supposed to step aside. Adam Schiff actually should not, because he's a fact witness, because he lied, he's been proven to be incorrect by the evidence, he actually should have to be recused from participation.
Is this your point about he's a liability, he ought to recuse himself? The Democrats ought to recuse him.
Oh, absolutely. They're never going to, but they should. I mean, Adam Schiff, especially you go back to the made-up phone call when he went and did his whole thing. I mean, that right there is a disqualifier.
Well, that shows a bias beyond belief.
What about, we got about a minute left. What about the fire breathers? President Trump clearly wants the Lee Zeldins, the Jim Jordans, but you're seeing this pushback in the article came out. Maggie Haberman and said they've already locked into Pat Cipollone in the White House counsel team. What do you think?
Pat's an incredibly good attorney, but this is not a trial. This is a public spectacle, and the reality is that Jim Jordan and Steve Castor and the rest of the team that knows how to present to people what they need to see on a global basis need to be running this.
Castor, his name was thrown out in the article. He's the lead staffer, the lead counsel for Republicans for oversight. What's your experience with him? And he got mixed reviews during the hearings. One day people said he did great. One day people said not so great. What's your experience? What do you think?
He's an incredible investigator, an incredible lawyer. he's not a presenter, and it was never. He should never. He does great depositions. He should never have been, quote, asked to be an actor. But the reality is, he is the most key member of my team. He was elevated from lead investigator to my lead counsel.
Wow.
He was demoted by the next chairman and re-promoted as they put back together an effective oversight team under Jim Jordan. So there's no person that Jim's going to depend on more than Chris.
Okay, we take a short commercial break. Episode 110 on War Room. We'll be back in a second.
War Room Impeachment with Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller, and Raheem Kassam. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Episode 110, War Room Impeachment, live from Capitol Hill. Raheem Kassam, Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon, and of course, the former head of the Oversight Committee, a real warrior on Capitol Hill, and a guy that was really going after the permanent political class, which we call the swamp, Congressman Darrell Issa from California 50. And we need a guy like Issa. We need Issa, more Issas back. And we need him in the administration. We can't give him in the administration because we don't play hardball in the Senate to get guys confirmed. And we play hardball with the judges, thank God. But, man, we got to start playing. The Trump administration got so many great people that we need to get in these confirmation positions, and Congressman Issa is a perfect example. Before we talk, this is the whole thing. The fire breathers in the House. The House is very different than the Senate. You've got, you had a collection of warriors down there when you guys were there, and now some of those have come to the forefront. What if you were sitting with the president, because he pays attention when you talk, and one of the reasons he pays attention, you're kind of like him. You don't need this job. You're not a guy who comes here with $100,000 and leaves with $24 million. You come already as incredibly wealthy because of your entrepreneurial activity, right? So you're not looking to make friends. You're not looking for a paycheck here. You're looking to tell them exactly the way it is, and you don't give a crap, right? That's one thing I've always liked about you. No, because every time I ask you a question, you give it to boom. With Issa, you get it with the bark. You get it with the bark on.
I got to
right?
tell you real quick, Darrell Issa story. So it's 1997. I'm working for him, and he's Directed Electronics. That's his company. They had what were you, the 40% of the U.S. auto security market, 45% market share.
We always just said the largest.
The largest,
Right.
yeah. So it was
Kind of
great.
like the Trump organization.
So I get a car.
We were big.
It was invented to keep guys like him, his younger self, out of cars, right?
It absolutely was to stop a crime I was familiar with from my youth.
So I say to him, so I'm like, okay, I get a car. I'm like, this guy's got a 40% share of the U.S. auto security market. Let me just ask him for a Viper car alarm, right? I'll never forget this. He deadpans me and goes, Jason, I didn't get to be the nation's largest dealer or supplier of the auto security market by giving away my car alarms. And
Hey, I
was just
offered
like,
your friends and family discount.
you did. So hold on. So what he gave me was this thing called the BOA, which remember the club that you put on the car. So Darrell, he goes.
Ted still got one.
So Darrell goes to his closet and breaks out like this thing that looks like the club. It's called the BOA, and he's like, "Here, you can have this one for free." And so I was one of these jabronis of the late '90s driving around with this BOA on my car, so no one would steal it. But I always remember Darrell, always frugal.
Before we go into another topic, the fire breathers. If you were to tell the president, if you were over at the Oval today, what would you tell him his team needs to be composed of? Because this is still a in process, as we say, right?
Exactly. He has to have people that are familiar with legitimate oversight and willing to fight the inaccuracies of the prosecution. That starts with Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, the key people who have been at the president's defense, but also who have been working the facts. And there's no question.
Who
at
know
all.
the details of the evidence so well you can't spin them.
I cannot say as fast under any circumstances as Jim Jordan could give you every single part of this. No one can be faster on their feet, and that's going to be essential. It's going to be essential during the trial. It's going to be essential explaining
Because what I think they've told the president, if you read the news reports in here, is that what it is that they'll do media in the evening. That's not good enough. You want them on the spot.
You've got to be on the spot. Look, let's think about how Rudy Giuliani saved the city of New York. he didn't save it because he was a lawyer. He understood the law. He saved it because he was aggressive in changing how things were done. You've got to be that kind of aggressive. It's not about being a lawyer. It's about knowing what the American people need to change.
Now, this is what Mitch McConnell and the guys, the argument about the decorum of the Senate, this has only happened 3 times in American history. You're presenting to the world. It's got to have a certain member of gravitas. And as soon as you get the Darrell Issas and the Mark Meadows and the Lee Zeldins and the Jim Jordans, Jim Jordan's got his jacket off, he's looking to wrestle, all of a sudden you lose that decorum.
Well, first of all, we'll have decorum because the senators aren't allowed to speak. So the first
You
thing,
love that more than anything, don't
the
you?
idea that instead of their having an unlimited amount of time to talk and accomplish nothing, the fact that they get to sit there quietly, the Supreme Court Chief Justice gets to rule only on occasion, and the rest of it belongs to these buccaneers from the House. And if you bring in anyone other than the buccaneers from the House, you're going to lose track of what this was all about. This was about the misconduct of the House. The very fact that the president's use of power and his objection to unreasonable things out of the House are being tried. The very fact that we had, I don't worry about a few $1 million of investigation, but the effect on this administration of having the opportunity cost
Huge.
based on the years of a false investigation. This has to be changed.
We got to go a quick commercial break. Warroom.org is the website.
Yep, warroom.org, getting new stories up every few minutes. Head on to warroom.org.
We've just answered the question why we couldn't get Issa to run for the Senate. Short commercial break. Back with episode 110 next.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment
on the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam, and now Issa in the House in the War Room, episode 110, Monday, 12 January, year of our Lord 2020. Game on this week. Okay, let's go to over. The news is just it's so intense every day. Raheem, what do we got overnight that's driving the story?
Look, coming out of Iran, a great many stories overnight, including protesters chanting, kill the mullahs outside of the...
and not stepping on the American flag or the flag of Israel.
And refusing to step on the American flag and the flag of Israel. Unlike my build-up being stepped on there. The next
Gotta be quick.
The next point coming out is that it looks like there's another technology block, the internet block coming out of the University of Technology in Tehran. NetBlocks reporting that, and reports of shooting of protesters in Tehran overnight. Live rounds being fired. They say to disperse protesters in Tehran. Another news story that's coming out. NBC News reporting that Trump authorized Soleimani's killing 7 months ago, a very heavily sourced story from Carol Lee and Courtney Koob at NBC News, which kind of undermines the narrative that this was a spur-of-the-moment decision by the president to distract from impeachment. And then finally, of course, the news coming out of yesterday, which requires some consideration, is that President Trump has had the foremost retweeted and liked tweets in Farsi ever, I believe, which is his Farsi translation tweets aimed at supporting the protesters in Iran against the regime.
Arab streets on fire, both Sunni in Beirut and Shia in Tehran, to support the President of the United States and his policies of freedom.
Although I'm not sure the Iranians like to be called the Arab Street, but we'll...
Well, no, I'm saying, but you got Shiite, you got Sunni, but when they used to call it, Powell would always say Tehran, Tehran, Tehran. Let's go to this thing about...
just one thing. You said Sunni. It's actually also the Shia in Beirut. People who would normally be aligned with Hezbollah are out on the street and protesting, and that is driving, to be honest, the Iranians crazy because they've
always... This is why Soleimani was flying around. He went to Beirut because Hezbollah's on their back foot. One, they have no money because of the economic war of the President of the United States against the mullahs.
Absolutely. And, Soleimani had a history because in 2005, when he was declared essentially to be a terrorist leader, he was in the process of building up Hezbollah's capability to attack Lebanon. In 2006, of course, that led to the war with Israel. And very clearly, he was going back and forth. So, when you look at this guy's history, all the blood in both sides, in Israel and in Lebanon from the '06 war, on his hands, and that's separate from the attack after attack.
Jason, does it take away if the president, authorized potential action against this guy 7 months ago? It's still, it doesn't take away from what the action that took place the other day.
No, this is a completely false divide the media is trying to create. I mean, two things can be true at the same time here. Soleimani is a bad guy. Was a bad guy. He'd been a bad guy for a long time, going back to '05 when we put him on the U.S. terrorist list, going back to the '80s with the bombing of the Marine barracks.
CNN's big scoop over the weekend was that Eric Prince, because of these FOIA requests, they got the testimony of the Mueller report. It was Eric Prince's email to me in 15 that I forwarded to General Flynn about taking down General Soleimani. Eric Prince is a guy that knows the region. Congressman Issa knows the region. Anybody who's been involved in American interest in the region. Hell, I was a naval officer in '79 on a destroyer in the Persian Gulf.
I was sitting in the Army with the same attitude you had, which is, when are we going to go in and get our guys back?
So we've been around this for a long time.
That's true, but the other thing that's coming out, and the people, that's been out, but people are coming alive to at the moment, is just how much both the Bush and Obama administrations refused to stare down Soleimani at all. Even when all of this was taking place under Bush in 2006, and they knew what was going on, they refused. There was talk of designating him a combatant in Iraq, but actually they shied away from it. And you just think, between that time and now, what lives could have been saved, what bloodshed could have been stopped if the Bush and Obama administrations, respectively, had wanted to take on Soleimani.
Let's talk about the polling and how the American people are thinking about this. We had the USA Today poll last week that said, 53% of the people didn't like it. There was a poll out, was an ABC poll overnight. What is this poll telling us? That the ABC poll, I sent you guys earlier.
So the ABC Ipsos poll, so it was 500 voters nationally, which we know sometimes these are a little bit funky, but it said that for handling of the quote-unquote situation with Iran, 43% approve, 56% disapprove, which, again, if you have 100% negative information flow, that's what it's
that means they couldn't talk 43% of the people out of the truth, even while the mainstream media tried.
But do we do, like, for instance, his record historically, all the way back to the Lebanon, the Beirut bombing that killed the Marines? Have we done a good job collectively on our side of the football of actually making the case and supporting this with details? Because this guy, we haven't made this guy famous enough. In the region, if you pay attention to this, in the region, I mean, he's bigger than al-Baghdadi. I mean, this guy's the mastermind that's connected it for decades, but have we actually made the case? The president took the action, but have others consistently made the case, and not just on Fox, but make it on MSNBC and make it on CNN?
We've done worse than that. We went after Osama bin Laden for one successful attack, for 9/11, because we focused on he's bad, he did it. With Soleimani, what we've done is we've had years of one murder after another, one loss of an American life, one loss of Israeli lives, one loss of other innocents. And over time, we've desensitized the whole question of why aren't we killing him? The fact is, he should have been taken out as a colonel. I mean,
and there have been so much less mayhem, so much less bloodshed.
Less mayhem. If you aggressively say we will not tolerate state sponsors of terror, we will not tolerate these people. The same could be said of Sheikh Nasrallah with Hezbollah and so on. And yet, over time, they get sort of this cocoon around them that they've been murderers for so long that they're somehow exempt.
We need this guy back in Congress in the worst way. No, we need hammers like this. I mean, this is the kind of thing the president needs to have his back. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break, but Raheem, go to all the and by the way, we're not going to Vox Populi, which is normally every Monday for 2 hours because of the gun situation in Virginia. John Fredericks is going to do a special live report right after us at 10 o'clock from the Capitol in Richmond. We're going to have this massive rally. Over 100,000 people are coming next Monday. We will be there live with John Fredericks. But John Fredericks is going to be there today when the legislation is put forward. Raheem, tell us how else do people get connected with us?
Yep, warroom.org. You can sign up to the emails. We don't spam. You'll get an email daily, however, with the show, the latest show, which a lot of you I know open and subscribe to, and I'm very grateful for it. Share it with your friends. Make sure you're getting alerts. And also, we're rising rising up the podcast rankings. We're at number 10 on the iTunes news charts right now. We'd really like to break into the top 5. If you can help us, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends, your colleagues, your family. Write up little stickers, put them on billboards, everything.
It's all free, and we're ahead of Rachel Maddow, our favorite, Rachel Maddow, right ahead of her.
I wasn't going to say it. But
We'll be back in a minute, episode 110.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room, Impeachment.
On the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Live from Capitol Hill, 12 January, year of our Lord 2020. It's game week. We're here, episode 110. We've recommended yesterday on Maria Bartiromo, after we talked about it last week, to say the President of the United States, she locked in President Trump over Christmas to do the State of the Union. Something sounded fishy since last year during the government shutdown. She didn't want to have him have a State of the Union. We now realize what she's done. She slow-walked this, so at the middle of the impeachment trial, she's going to oversee Trump, overlook him. You know, the New York Times headline's already been written, you know, under cloud of uncertainty, Trump addresses the nation. Do you think he ought to delay the State of the Union, demand it until he's acquitted?
Every president comes before the joint session and says the State of the Union, and the Union is strong and it is solid and it is robust and it is certain. The president can't say that until this is resolved. He cannot bring exactly what George Washington on brought until it's resolved. So yes, he has to wait until this is resolved, and then with the full force of his office, he can say going forward, post-impeachment, the state of this union is strong and it is certain, as is his reelection, I might add.
Magnificent. That's 100 times better than I did on Maria Bartiromo. I want that. The president.
Yeah, President tonight will be in New Orleans for the national championship game for college football. I got Clemson and LSU. That's basically a home game for LSU. So you know where the fans are going to be. Imagine the president will get a pretty rousing ovation. He's pretty popular in Louisiana
and South Carolina.
And South Carolina. So it's going to be home turf, so to speak. But in the brief time that we have here, Congressman, I want to get your take on the Democratic primary for president. Who you think is going to be the nominee? Is Crazy Bernie going to do it? Are we going to see Hillary or Bloomberg come in a brokered convention? What's your take?
It's going to be AOC with a constitutional amendment. They're just going to have to allow younger.
Whoa.
Yeah, look,
That's very smart, though, because that's Bernie. Really, Bernie's AOC. All the energy is coming from her.
Yeah. Like the one thing I know is that Michael Bloomberg will buy enough votes and enough influence to adversely affect the outcome. And I think for Bernie, who's a populist, et cetera, it probably is his biggest nemesis, is to have somebody who is distorting the process with vast amounts of money. He's not the only one doing it, but a man who.
But his is a scale that's unheard of.
But it was unheard of when he ran for his third reelection as
$300
mayor.
million.
He was an okay mayor, but can you imagine having to spend that much if you're an okay mayor? He should have had a free walk for his reelection.
We got about 30 seconds. He said the other day he will commit $1 billion if he's not the nominee. Unlimited amount of money if he is, but to be the prime minister, he'll give you $1 billion. How big an impact will that have?
On a Democratic Party that can be bought? A lot. They're actually being rented, not bought.
Okay, Raheem, how do people get to the site? We're going to do Vox Populi tomorrow from 10 to noon. Today it's going to be John Fredericks live from Richmond, Virginia, to talk about the gun legislation.
Yeah, and for the new listeners, Vox Populi is our weekly call-in show, and that's tomorrow. So make sure tomorrow morning you're tuned in, ready to go to call in, talk to Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller, and myself. In the meantime, warroom.org is the domain for everything over the course of the day. I want to see lots of email sign-ups today. So if you're not signed up,
we're back at 5 p.m. We're going to have Roger Scruton, a bunch
special every day at 5 p.m.
5 p.m. every day this week. See you then.